I have on the conversation Amanda Mackey, Republican strategist and attorney. She actually has a really remarkable resume, a remarkable background. We're gonna try to figure out why she's still a Republican. So Amanda is a lawyer, political strategist, policy strategist. Most recently, she did have a candidacy for the Republican primary, Florida's 13th congressional district, 2020, earning the endorsements of over 24 Republican leaders. She was appointed by George W. Bush, that administration, to serve the Army General Counsel at the Pentagon just weeks after September 11th. I want to talk about CPAC. Amanda, how are you?
I'm great.
Okay, so did you enjoy CPAC?
I thought it was a great display of conservative values. You had really the conservative base leaders there, and I thought they did a good job of conveying the message.
Did you think they did a good job at worshiping Donald Trump as well?
I thought Donald Trump did, exactly what he should do, which is try to heal the party, show that there isn't division. And then, of course, he had to lay out why Joe Biden's first 40 days in office has been a disaster. And I thought he did a good job of that. And I thought he didn't go off script too much. So I think he did a good job.
Let's talk about some of that criticism. You brought up that, yep, he definitely highlighted what he called a disastrous administration within the first few days. But let's talk about what Trump did for 4 years. Do you believe Trump was a successful president? Now, I'm gonna give you context for this based on the measure that he gave you. He said things like he would fix immigration, that he would cut taxes like for the middle class like never before. He said that he would be the greatest negotiator. He said he would give you a wall. He said he would increase military spending. He said he would give raises to teachers. He said he would bring universal health care. None of this happened under his leadership. So by the measurable outcomes, would you say his 4 years was successful?
Well, I look at the things that he was able to do. There are a lot of things that politicians talk about, and then they have to work within the confines of the Congress. This isn't a monarchy, so he has to work with the legislative body. I mean, just compare, with Joe Biden. He's done a lot by executive order. I just wrote a piece on this actually in the Tampa Bay Times, comparing Joe Biden, who spent decades, over 30 years in the United States Senate, with the most recent president of either party who spent nearly 2 decades in the Senate, and that was Lyndon B. Johnson. Now, LBJ really worked with the other side. He was known for strong arming, he was known for bullying, but he worked to bring bipartisan legislation. Whether you agree with it or not, he did many things during his time. Now, Joe Biden, on the other hand, is doing a lot by executive order, which I completely disagree with, but I understand that's within his parameters. President Trump did that too, but President Trump actually worked in a bipartisan way to bring about legislation. Let's talk about historically Black colleges and universities, record funding there, criminal justice.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, now you're in my lane. Now you're in my lane because I actually have a degree from an HBCU. So let's talk about the HBCU optical illusion. So while Donald Trump absolutely said we're gonna give more money to HBCUs, he also cut federal funding for what's called the Federal TRIO program. The Federal TRIO program is Upward Bound Educational Talent Search. That money directly goes to first generational Black students to have a college experience. I benefited from that program myself at Clark Atlanta University. Donald Trump cut the funding for that program. He basically said, I'm giving you money here, but then he took more money out of the pot on the other side. And he never doubled down and actually funded the private HBCU capital fund that he created. So when you say that he did something in the bipartisan manner for HBCUs, he did a photo op with a bunch of HBCU presidents and gave them absolutely nothing. And those presidents would tell you that.
Well, look, he still worked with Congress to do that. And where there are cuts, you can boost up other funding programs. I worked in Congress for nearly a decade, and there certainly is in Congress a desire, even on both sides of the aisle, I would say, that if we're going to boost up programs, we do have to make cuts elsewhere. So it's not always, fair. It's not always done exactly the way that people want it. But I think a boosting of the HBCUs. But for me personally, I really think the criminal justice reform that President Obama wasn't able to pass, but President Trump was, and did it in a bipartisan way, something that really sat there for decades. And nothing ever happened. He used Jared Kushner because of his father's time in prison to work on that. And they actually did something. Did it go far enough? Did it, solve all the problems? This is not a perfect science, but I think what they did was a good, great start for something that really matters to a lot of people. It's personal to me as well.
Well, Amanda, I thank you for bringing that kind of stuff up, because at CPAC, the theme was not about HBCUs nor higher education, period. The theme at CPAC was not about criminal justice reform whatsoever. So let's talk about criminal justice reform for a moment, because you brought it up, all right? So I like the initiative. It has helped individuals. And I've been able to interview people on my show about the initiative that Trump did sign into law. That was a bipartisan measure, by the way, that Republicans and Democrats both signed on to. But remember, his administration also, once again, cut funding for reentry programs, eliminated halfway houses, decided to not allow the Pell Grant pilot program to remain inside of federal jails. And we all know that higher education is the best deterrent to recidivism in the United States of America. So on the one hand, he has this great legislative accomplishment with bipartisan support, and then he has 10 policy issues that completely contradict the legislative agenda of criminal justice reform. How do you marry the two, and why is it that nobody at CPAC talked about criminal justice reform or making sure HBCUs got money they deserve?
Well, I actually think higher education is important. Certainly, it helped my family. We came here with nothing. We fled from Iran when the revolution happened, and my parents didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. They came to a country that was foreign to them. They had a 1-year-old, and my father was able to study while my mom delivered yellow pages and was a nanny to be able to put him through school. And I didn't have anything new until I was about 9 years old. And so I completely understand how important higher education it is. It has made a difference in my life, not just me personally, but also my family and others who have immigrated to this country. So I think let's talk about immigration, because I think that's important. But with regards to higher education, not only is higher education important, but technical education is important. Not everyone is going to be a doctor or lawyer, nor do we need everyone to be a doctor or lawyer. We need people to be plumbers and pipe fitters and all those things too. So I think that's important. Look, again, it's not a perfect science when you're dealing with a clunky federal bureaucracy. You have to take from some programs and make changes. That's why I think that, what you look at overall is if there's bipartisan support, it's a good thing. That's why I don't like that Joe Biden has really just said, look, it's a take it or leave it. We're gonna do this and you're either with us or you're not. And I think he's seeing now is
Trump's philosophy as well. Now, you can't criticize Joe Biden, you don't also criticize Donald Trump. Donald Trump not only had a take it or leave it mentality as it related to what he wanted to do, he also attacked other Republicans openly, one of them being the governor of Georgia, if he did not get his way. So this bullish leadership mentality is not something that is simply allocated to a Joe Biden presidency. If you're going to blame it, have some intellectual integrity and blame Trump if you don't like the methodology of leadership.
I think bullish is different than bipartisan. Look.
You think Trump was a bipartisan president?
Yes. COVID relief.
Name the pieces of legislation.
5 COVID relief bills. Joe Biden doesn't have one, and he doesn't care to have one with Republicans.
Here's what I would like you to do. Joe Biden got a few days. Trump had 4 years. Name 2 major accomplishments of Donald Trump that had significant bipartisan support over 4 years of being in control of this country.
Well, I just mentioned 5 COVID relief bills. And I also mentioned criminal justice reform. I think those are 2 good examples. A right to try legislation that allowed for drugs that hadn't been fully approved by the FDA to be able to use by people with rare and lethal diseases. So I think those are examples of things that he looked at it and just said, this doesn't make sense. We need to fix this.
Now, I absolutely understand your positioning on that, and very good, finding some of those moments in his presidency. But you would say, and I only got a few seconds left, you would say that Donald Trump was absolutely a bipartisan president for 4 years.
I would say that he got a lot accomplished on a bipartisan basis, and Joe Biden in his first 40 days doesn't care to do it even once.
All right, well,
it's a perfect example.
It's tough to do it when you have such tribalism in the political narrative, that you have Republicans saying that they're going to impeach Joe Biden on his first day of office without him ever even getting sworn in and getting a day's work done. You already had Republicans.
I think that was President Trump that they said they were going to impeach within 19 minutes of him being sworn in.
Well, remember, the record was set by Congresswoman Green out of Georgia that started to do the paperwork before Biden was sworn in. My point to you is there's such extreme tribalism in politics that I don't think anyone can proclaim that Trump was somehow a bipartisan president whatsoever. I think that's loony. But I'll give you the last word.
I would just say there were bipartisan accomplishments. Joe Biden would be wise to have his first bill be bipartisan. And he just saw with Neera Tanden having to withdraw that this is going to be a very tough Congress with a 50-50 Senate, only 9 seats separating the majority in the House. He has to work on a bipartisan basis, and that would be very wise of him to do. Duty number 1, open up the schools.
All right, I appreciate you. Thank you for your time, Amanda. It's been fun.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.